Hi, I'm Jenna, and I come to you guys all the way from sunny Phoenix, Arizona. Just kidding. I'm actually on vacation in Washington right now. But that's actually one of the reasons I was really excited to find out you guys picked Geronimo, was he lived a majority of his life in Arizona. And also, the second reason was I got to study a soldier for a year who jumped in Normandy. He was a paratrooper, and he was from the 501st Unit, which is kind of nicknamed Geronimo. And so why I'm talking to you through video is what I understand about the Native American culture is they are very into oral history. And so I thought this was the best way to tell Geronimo's story, was by telling it over camera. Well, telling it in person, but the next best thing is camera. So, here it goes. I warn you, I will probably butcher most of these names. Well, Galathe, one who yawns, means, was born in 1829, and he was born in New Mexico, which was still Mexico at the time. And he actually didn't get the name Geronimo until many years later, and that name was, the most widely accepted theory was, it was given to him by Mexican soldiers. Well, he was a leader in the Apaches, and his brother-in-law, Ja, had a speech impediment, so he really ended up kind of rising up because he spoke for him a lot. And he was actually a chief. The brother-in-law was actually a chief for the Chiricahua Apaches. And so Geronimo's story that we know really begins in 1858, when he came home from a trade excursion and he found out that his wife and 3 small children were killed by Mexican soldiers. He kind of went on a little bit of a rampage for a little while, and then ended up coming back to the Apaches. And in 1875, the Apaches that were west of the Rio Grande were told to move out, and they were ordered to go to the San Carlos Reservation. And Geronimo and his brother-in-law, Ja, ended up escaping 3 different times. The last time, or when he finally surrendered, he actually managed to never be captured, but the last trying to attempt to kind of get him, it ended up having 5,000 soldiers, which was 1/4 of the U.S. Army at the time, 500 scouts, and up to 3,000 Mexican soldiers. So that's a big group trying to get him. Well, anyway, he ended up going to the reservation, and him and his brother-in-law ended up farming for a little while. And they lived quietly on the reservation until 1881, which an Apache prophet was murdered. And then they went right back to doing what they were doing before, in the Sierra Madre Mountains. They ended up having secret camps and just kind of causing trouble wherever they could. Well, in 1882, he agreed to come home to the reservation. And so after about a year of farming, a Apache warrior named Kahatene was captured. And there was a lot of rumors around the reservation about trials and hangings, and nobody was sure what was going on. And so Geronimo and Ja actually escaped again. And they escaped with 35 warriors and 109 women and children. And so in January of 1886, after being on, I guess, the run for a little while, Ja's hideout was actually found out, and they didn't think that was going to happen. And so Geronimo actually surrendered on March 25th, 1886, to General George Crook. And that wasn't his MO, so he escaped again. And so finally, on September 4th, 1886, he finally surrendered for good this time. So last time to General Nelson Miles. And at the end of his running and everything, he only had 16 warriors, 12 women, and 6 children with him. And so this was the last, why Geronimo's so famous is it really was the last Indian guerrilla action in the U.S. Quoting NativeAmericans.org. And so once they finally got him, he ended up being transported with 450 Apache men, women, and children to Florida, where they were kept at Fort Marion and Pickens. Eventually, 300 of them were actually transferred, or they are actually moved to a different fort in Florida. Actually, they were moved from Pickens to Fort Marion. Sorry about that. And so after that, many of them were relocated to Alabama, which actually 1/4 of them died from tuberculosis and other diseases. Well, in 1894, they were brought to Oklahoma, which eventually Geronimo became a rancher in 1904. And he ended up dying there eventually in February 17th, 1909. But one thing he did in between that was actually rode with Teddy Roosevelt in 1905 for the inaugural parade, which I did not know. Anyway, that's kind of the story I found out about Geronimo. And my uncle told me this fun fact. He actually, throughout his life, had 9 different wives. I don't think any of them were at the same time, but I couldn't really find a lot on them. I kind of recruited my uncle for a little bit, so he was fun to get some information out of. Well, why Geronimo is really significant from what I've read and everything is he's the last fighting Native American force in America that was really pushing back against the U.S. armies. And to the Apaches, they viewed him as having a lot of sorry, I'm trying to think of what I'm saying. Having the values that the Apache really admire, they viewed him as having. So that was aggressiveness, courage, were just 2 of them, and being able to face difficulties. And to a lot of other people, up until the mid-19th century, he was kind of a symbol of fear. So it was interesting to kind of see how everything changed as the story got older. And why he had a connection to the 501st Unit was, it turns out it didn't really have much to do with his story, but it had more to do with, it was actually the movie that was watched the night before. Okay, sorry, I'll go back. So, a kid was getting ready to jump when the unit was first formed, and he was really, really nervous. And so the night before he jumped, they were giving him difficulties, and they were saying, well, when you jump, you're not even going to remember your name. And so they watched the movie Geronimo the night before. And so when the kid jumped, he actually yelled Geronimo as he was going down. And eventually the unit contacted the family and asked if they could kind of keep the name for their unit. And so the family said yes, and so that's how it's the Geronimo, nicknamed Geronimo. That's at least the most widely accepted story for the unit. And so, yeah, I hope you enjoyed this rendition of the story. I think I got everything, but I hope you have a great day.